just sending that to a few people. I was just kind of explaining to, because there's some people on the call on Facebook Live who've never been with us before, and a little bit about what we're doing and why I've been doing it for all the time that I've been doing it, and what, you know, that kind of stuff, and then there we go. I've really decided that this is the last time I'm going to do this. And all day, actually, it was like there just was no energy for this at all. And it was about 10 to 7 when I thought, okay, I'll just sit down and see what wants to happen. And so I, you know, for a year and a half, we've been doing a Monday night meditation group, and as you know, Adrian, it's kind of involved into something quite different now, but we're going to go back to kind of a combination of live. I'm going to invite people to come and sit with us tomorrow or next Monday. So we'll do some of this, and we'll do something live as well, and next Monday night, and yeah, that's all. But
like live, you mean in person?
Yes.
Right.
Yeah, you know, and I would be fine with if 3 people came, you know, but I'm yeah, I don't have a strong pull to. And tonight when we started this, you know, I didn't have a strong pull to organize or to, you know, for the last half hour or so, I've kind of been the only guy on the screen, and I feel a bit like a entertainer, you know. And I'm not, that's, you know, I guess that's me, but I didn't want to be an entertainer. And, you know, anyway, how have you been, Adrian?
Yeah, it's been good. I've been really good. I'm enjoying the summer, doing some gardening.
Nice.
Doing some work. Yeah, it's been very peaceful here.
Have you met Preston before?
He seems familiar. Hi, Preston.
Hey, Adrian. I don't know that we have met, but maybe once in person or something. But yeah, it's great to meet you.
Good to meet you as well.
Yeah. I've been doing some gardening as well.
Nice, so. I can see.
Yeah. And me too. I was away for 2 weeks, and I put in kind of a small garden, but a full garden, and it wasn't nobody paid too much attention to it when I was away, and so it's really got, the weeds are growing, and so I've been out there almost all day weeding, and I guess there were a lot of wet days while I was away as well.
Yeah.
So the man who was going to look after it may have only been available on days when it was wet, and so it didn't happen. So I was just sharing we have a beautiful person on the call and on Facebook Live from New Zealand, and I was just sharing with her, I think Annie is a her, and that first of all, I've been spending a lot of time, still doing about an hour to 2 hours a day with Muji, which is he just, you know, shows up as it's been amazing listening to the nuances of, you know, of his path, and as he works with people over and over again, but I guess what I was saying was why are we doing this, and that what had happened for me is that I realized that nothing was missing, nothing was that there was no need to be in complaint or to be in fear or to be in judgment. And because everything is exactly as it needs to be in each moment. And after what seems like 40 years of somehow looking for that, and knowing it intellectually, the now it seems like I'm living that. I recognize that sharing on Monday nights and also anytime that I'm available to share that people are interested in hearing is as I look around me, it seems like the whole world is in complaint or in judgment or and lives in a place where I guess I lived most of my life, and I don't feel like I'm living there anymore. I'm not living there anymore, and so it's that's why I'm here on Monday nights, is to share that. I mean, how simple can it be than to say that nothing's missing? That there's not a hair out of place in this world, and somehow we've been conditioned to believe that there is something missing or something wrong, and so I spent most of my adult life stressing about getting it right, or stressing about I basically had a fundamental belief that there was something wrong, something was missing, or that I was going to lose something, or that and to have that not there, actually at some level almost makes it irrelevant to do this. At some level, if you know what I mean. It's like, who really gives a shit? And because and yet here we are, and yeah. So that's why we meet on Monday nights, and to talk about the different, in a way, the different places where we can get held up maybe, or off track. And Preston, how's it been for you lately?
I guess I feel like there's a lot out of place. So I don't know that I like, I guess the thing that I'm kind of wrestling with is that, I feel like things could be better for more people, and I want to like do something about it, to like to make the world a better place, to try to do that. But I feel like it's also like really difficult and frustrating. And so maybe I don't know, maybe I'm going about it the wrong way. But I've been really frustrated lately. I've been really like, I don't know, maybe just consuming too much media. But I want to take action. I want to like do things. I want to change things that I think are wrong or injustices, and help people. But yeah, really kind of frustrated lately with that, I guess.
Well, I think that's admirable. To I think that all of us at one level want to make a difference or help people, um, and we talked a little earlier about, I'm helping people on a spiritual basis, being probably one of the most, profound gifts that we can give people. Isn't it funny that when we discover that our connection with with our higher power, or we discover our God consciousness, or when we realize that from our ego we can't run the show, like we've talked about, then if that's a spiritual principle, if you will, that in a way that nobody from their ego, from a place of wanting, a place of desire, actually gets fulfilled. It's not just you and me and some of our recovery clan. The whole world, at some level, if they're living in desire, are anxious or feeling something's missing, or that they're going to lose something. And my experience over the last number of years is that no matter how full my cup seemed to be with stuff or experiences or relationships, I still always felt like there was something missing. I kind of had that anxious, restless, irritable, and discontentness, that and until I really surrendered to the letting go of really recognize that I could not run the show. That it was like, from where I was looking at the world, if it's true that we manifest what we think about, my thought was there is not enough. And that's what I always manifested, really. There's not enough. So it didn't seem like any amount of affirmations or gratitude lists could bring me to this place of fullness. And because I did, books of gratitude lists, and it, it always felt like something was missing. So the awakening, if you will, to the recognition that nothing is missing, that everything is exactly where it needs to be in each moment, that is perfectly perfect or perfectly imperfect, was the greatest gift that I could receive. And interesting conundrum we're in, isn't it? But I should say one more thing, and Adrian, I'd love to hear your feedback on this. But Preston, I have a friend that I've been working with for quite a while, and you him, Adrian. He's been on these calls before, and he struggles with what I would call the universal mental illness, which is that the one we're just talking about. There's not enough. That somehow I can fix things, or that and many of us, because the pain of that feeling, that emptiness, the pain of that that God hole, if you will, is so much we resort to drugs and alcohol, you know, and to lift us out of that, even temporarily. So our friend has gone back to that world, you know, and so very close to home for me because, we've been working together for the last several months, and is my roommate and all of that, and so very close to home, and the realization, I woke up this morning, I think it was this morning, and with all the stuff going in my head, because sometimes in the early morning, the old persona is there. I wake up with it sometimes. It's like, and the persona was saying, oh, you could have done more, you could have done different, you could have, what have you done this, what have you done that? And I was caught up in this wanting it to be different. And it didn't take long to kind of to move through that, to recognize that my friend is exactly where he needs to be. And it's not up to me to say that where he is wrong or right. It's perfect. Who am I to judge? Who am I to say that I made a mistake, or I should have done this, or if I'd done that, it would be different? Because that's the old judgment. And that judgment came up for me. I was judging myself this morning. David, you could have done more. And it passed pretty quickly. It was like, oh, okay, great. He's exactly where he needs to be. And if that's true, it's true for everybody on this planet. Who am I to say that, and Adrian, you and I know we've been in Asia lots, and lots of Western people will come to Asia, and they're going to fix things. They're going to, build them a house, or build them they're going to look after stuff, and in a way they want to help, but and I think a certain amount of helping is fine, but who am I to say that what's happening isn't exactly what needs to happen in the moment? So that was another, I've had that awakening many times, but this was really close this morning, and I woke up with it and it was like, oh, I could have done this, or I could have done that. And I felt sad, and I was feeling sad because, and I accept my sadness as a human emotion. It was like, okay, there it is, this sadness. And yet if the sadness comes from a place of me feeling that something's wrong with his life is exactly how it needs to be, my friend who's gone back out, and so that was, that's beautiful. I mean, we can do what we can do to open the door as wide as we can open the door, but when I put expectations on people, or I make them right or wrong, if they don't accept the gift, then I have an attachment, and I'm not really giving freely with love, and so I'm just watching to be as compassionate and loving as possible for wherever people are at in each moment. Yeah, I didn't think I was going to share that tonight. Adrian, how are you? Any thoughts?
Well, I mean, for me, sort of my orientation, which is, has a lot to do with just a realization of self, and the abidance in that space, in that place. And the nice thing with that is a lot of clarity can come about, what life seems to throw around. And, one can then check in also to see what noise the mind is making, or what trouble it's causing, and so on, and also see when what's playing, kind of thing. So mm, so I think the key, I think, is to really just sort of if one is on that path, then the guidance from the teachers is to abide in the self, and really sit with oneself in that sense, in that unmoving place, to come to see what the mind is doing and saying, and in all these things. And I think for those who are drawn to that, it's a big discovery. It's a big discovery. I noticed this lady from New Zealand you mentioned, Annie. She said, so peaceful when you recognize your essential nature. It's all neutral. So she, she's fine. It seems like she's fine discovering that peace. No, and and if like when I hear you say that, Preston, that you're frustrated, I don't know what you mean by when you're frustrated, but I'm meeting quite a few frustrated people, and so there's two things typically that I hear. Then they're saying, I'm frustrated, and I'm wanting to change the world. Okay, so I go, well, okay, so the first world, which is the world here, that world I will call frustrated, angry, discontent, not happy, not clear. And I say that's because the outer world I see as others should feel better, others should do better. Yes, okay, but if I cannot manage this world first to be good, then how do I know that what I'm seeing out there is not my projection that comes out of this troubled world from inside? And I'm not saying that is a law or something like that. It's just something to reflect upon with a lot of honesty and say, how, if I say things like, oh, the world is this and this, it's like, well, first I have to make sure I'm not seeing this way. That's not me first. I talk to a lot of people, and sometimes I find that, or maybe their attention goes mostly to that which is troubling them inside. And it's like, well, then it's also a good idea to come inwards. And I think that's why you're doing these evenings, David, is to come to this kind of discovery, to really come to this inner seeing. And then and there's nothing wrong with going into the world and do things, help people, and so on, and but also keeping one eye on the inner world, so that one is not creating just new problems with one's attempt to fix a world that one has judged to be broken in a certain way, and yet on a separate channel it's creating just a whole set of new judgments and problems for someone else yet, so to say. So and so maybe that's what you were alluding to when you're seeing people in Asia trying to help people. It's like there's this saying to say, I'd rather teach them how to build a well than dig one for them, or something like that. So how do you know you're going to help in a healthy way? Well, sometimes we just don't know. I see that sometimes when I do some life coaching. I'm like, well, I don't know if me helping you right now is a good thing for you. I don't really know. I just do my best. I do it because I'm called in the moment to do it. But if I start seeing myself push too much or get frustrated, I'm like, now I've gotten a lot better with that. I'm just like, maybe me not saying anything is better. Who knows? Like, how do I know this? You know, it's like, and so that helps definitely for me, anyways, to kind of leave things more alone and just more look backwards and saying, where is this coming from? Where is this desire coming from? Is this an honest desire, or is this just a projection of my own frustration or my own fears or my own unhappiness and so on? So,
What's Adrian, you know, in the 12-step world, of course, the that I'm been involved in for many years, the actual 12th step is that we carry the message to people who are still suffering, and it's a fine line between the alcoholic and the addict and just regular folks who are frustrated or unhappy or restless, who don't have a visible addiction. You know, they're not burning the house down with drugs and alcohol or gambling or you know, sex or whatever it is, you know, food, the visible addictions. So the beautiful way that whole program is organized is that right from the very early days of what we call recovery, the recipient of the gifts of the 12 steps can begin to give the gifts away.
right.
And sometimes with zeal and enthusiasm, you know, sometimes it's
Which
pretty,
is fine. I mean,
yeah,
why not?
sure, yeah, over the top's better than not at all.
But those sound like positive emotions to me.
Oh yeah, they are. Yeah, I'm
Right.
just
I wasn't
showing.
referring to positive emotions here. I was more
Yeah.
talking about when it comes from frustration and or seeing discontentment, you know, like in the world, or a lack in the world or something like that.
Yes.
You know?
Well, sometimes also though, in their 12 steps, we'll use the 12th step as
Yeah.
as a uh, um, as a container. So if one of us is really experiencing restlessness and irritability and frustration and anger and resentment and fear and maybe temptation in the area of in relationship and those kind of things, the recommendation is go find somebody to help.
Right.
And so it's a you know, oftentimes the language that you're talking about, you know, around projection, you know, we're not even in that conversation yet, you know, and
Oh, I
but
see.
yeah, and I think what you're saying is true. It's I look at my own experience over, you know, since my early 20s when I first got in recovery. You know, I've spent most of those years, those 40 years, at one level or another trying to help people, even though I was still very anxious, sometimes terrified,
Mhm.
you know, angry, resentful sometimes, you know, even though I wasn't all that well myself, you
Right.
know.
And maybe not accepting help as much as you could have, asked
No,
for as much as you could have.
no, and no, oh, for sure, you know, my ego found it very difficult, my pride, you know, to found it difficult to ask for
Right.
help.
And this is what I mean by the projection. It's like sometimes, like I see it quite a bit because I'm sort of, you know, it's like beings where I kind of understand your situation a little bit, and I'm like, no, actually, it sounds like you're needing some love right now. You're needing some support, you know. But it's like it's that feeling then is seen in others, and then they're like, I wish I could help them, you know. It's like yes, that's very noble, but also look here and say, maybe you need to say, I need some help, you know, I need some support, I need to step back from trying to save the world and love myself a little bit more and things like that, you know. So
Yeah.
I think that sort of finding that balance, that's why I like this path a lot, because it's so introspective, and so, you know, being with oneself, um, you know, because it's just a tendency of the mind to go, and because it's easier to see when it's outside sometimes.
Yes.
I have a question. So I understand, I guess like a lot of my frustration is not necessarily from looking out and seeing something that's like maybe like, okay, so we'll stick with the example of like going to Asia and wanting to change things and being like, oh, things could be so much better. So I'm going to like take action to build this house or give something, right? But you know, there are also plenty of circumstances where there's another person who is intervening in the lives of others, like causing pain or like causing or like hurting people or doing things which you know, just like, yeah, harm people. Like there are people in this world who like intervene and do harm. So you know, as for me, it's like, well, if I see someone doing that type of doing those type of things, I don't want to just um you know, like stand by and not do anything about that.
Do you have a specific?
I mean, I guess I just think about like, you know, on a much bigger scale of like things like I mean, it's just like politics where it's like you want to you see just like policies that are hurting people and you want to like intervene, and it's not saying that they hurt everyone, like they wouldn't exist if they didn't benefit someone, but you know, you see people enacting policies in the city of Calgary that are hurting people and you want to change those policies so that there could be a less hurtful system.
So you're saying you want to, like,
Yeah, I think that I would like to do something. Yes.
Okay. Right. So I think, you know, I think this is so, like, to me, this is very much the classic way of the mind making us suffer,
Okay.
because it's not telling the truth.
Okay.
It engages in a fantasy on some level and discontent for sake of discontent, because if you follow that thought, let's say, let me back up. So it's one thing to say, I see this and I'm interested in politics and I'm running for office and I will have an impact and I'm going to help with this. Very wonderful. This is great. Why not? It's one of the paths. Many things you can do in life. This is a noble one, a good one. Perfect. And then also there won't be so much frustration. There will just be more questions of how and when and so on. Yes? But the mind plays this way. It says, I wish I could do something, but it's not willing to take steps. And nor does it say, well, what about the people in Edmonton? Because equally there's policies there that aren't. And then you start to explain, you know, then you start to, before you know it, the whole world is suffering and you're in big trouble because you're trying to be as honest as you can. You know, you're trying to be, oh, but then it wouldn't be fair that only Calgary people would be helped. So they got to be helped, and, you know, like this. And then the mind says, look how insignificant, powerless you are and how much more you should be doing and all of this. And I've seen met many people in that mind frame, and they're giving away their capacity to be helpful. So their capacity to be helpful is now substituted by their capacity to be frustrated and discontent.
Yeah.
And
So,
and
Adrian,
and I can say this to you because because you're here in this group, but you try to say that to person, they'll be like, oh, you're probably just one of these people who does nothing. It's like, well, you're not doing anything either. Well, but I want to at least, you know, and this is more noble somehow. And you know, like this, and this, how is the mind sometimes how it plays. And it's important to really look and say, and can I let this go if I'm not going to do anything about it? And just maybe send love and trust that someone will step in who has the capacity and the interest maybe, and the time maybe, and the education maybe, to do these things. But what I will take with my energy, I will focus on where it can matter.
Okay.
I just gotta grab you here just for a second. Preston's actually working on his master's thesis in this area.
Wonderful.
So he's not only seeing, you know, what can happen, and you know, he has an opportunity to make a difference especially in community.
Right.
And but you know, I think that for all of us, you know, we're all in the world, at least in this call, and I think probably lots of people who will be watching this, giving back. We're all here doing what we can, and it's really easy to wake up like I did this morning, thinking, "Gosh, I should have done more, or I could have done more," and that can happen, and that's from the mind. That's a like you said, it's a kind of a bullshit trick of the mind. You know, my mind, when I'm caught in moments like that, likes to beat me up. It's an old persona. You know, if you're not good enough and you can't, you know, do things well, and whatever, you know, so, but I think that when we have this relationship with the moment, when we recognize that everything is exactly how it should be, doesn't mean that we don't still give back. But where we, I believe, get to is to surrender the results. We're not attached to, you know, and I've had a real live example of that in the last 24 hours where, you know, I was sad. I went through some emotion, and because I wasn't surrendering the results. You know, I mean, I am in the field helping people on a daily basis, and, you know, or being there to give guidance or love, but without attachment to the results, you know, and it's not my business whether, you know, that person that I got to spend time with and carry a message of love to hears it, or you know, I can't measure. I don't have, my instrument isn't fine enough to measure, you know, from my mind, you know, whether there's been an effect from my prayer or my loving presence, so, but from the mind, my mind will almost always tell me, you know, what are you doing?
I think the mind tends to do that very automatically, actually.
Well, who do you think you are?
Yeah, it's almost like you know, if you asked a bunch of people, does your mind do that, they would say, yeah, my mind does that.
Yeah,
because I think it's something that's inherent in the mind, as it identifies that way, and it behaves that way. It's like it's an automatic behavior almost.
yeah, and that's the dissatisfaction I think we see on the whole planet. You know, no matter where we are, unless we have, you know, we're vibrating, you know, in the 500s or maybe the 400s, but, you know, to use Hawkins speak, you know, certainly above acceptance, you know, we're going to have this dissatisfaction that you had today when we chatted, you know, this restlessness, this irritability, this fuck, what am I doing, and how do we get into those higher vibrations, and is kind of why we're here tonight, to share that for those who want to live in a world of peace, that there is a way and there is a path, and yeah, and it's funny. I was gonna say it's not always the easy path, but there is really no other alternative. in a way, yeah.
One thing that I have definitely, learned over the years and seen just as firsthand experience is that, and I mean, this current situation with COVID is a very good example of it. It's like the sense that I have control and that I can, make decisions upon what ought to happen and what next year is going to look like, and what, it's very limited. It's because it's like there is something else that's, or what is happening is exactly what's happening, and I'm actually not steering that. I did not have anything to do with China and where this virus started, or I had nothing to do with, OPEC fighting about oil prices with Russia in 2015 and the price crashing. All these things. It's like you watch and you're going like, wow, there's like these big forces that are just rolling ahead, and all I do is I just move kind of with the flow, and my mind can have a track and saying like, I'm doing all of this, but when you really observe, you realize, well, no, I'm just kind of a bystander, kind of going with it, and I'm carried by these waves, and some of them crash on me and affect me, and some lift me up and put me just in the perfect place, and others, they just bypass me, and I think that the ego mind, like the people that I talk to and support, what they continuously, or what we talk about a lot, is they say, but my mind says I want this, or I feel I need to have control over this, I need to change this, or something like that. And it's like, but it's important you look and see if this is even a power you have, because so quickly something can change, and it's taken away from you just like that, and then you call it an accident or something. It wasn't meant to happen, but who's to say it wasn't meant to happen? It's the only thing that could happen and did happen, and it happened.
Yes. And so you're correct. I'd forgotten, it wasn't that long ago that we were saying how this pandemic had really brought us into awareness of how little control we really have,
Yeah.
and I'd actually forgot the gift of that the truth is that our idea of control is such an illusion, and how persistently we hang on to it. Again, I go back to the 12 steps again, because it clearly states in our step 1 that our life was unmanageable, and that in our attempt to manage life, we have our tools. Sometimes our tools are,
and then David, surely, I'm not so familiar with 12 step, but then surely in the 12th step, it's not now claiming suddenly you can manage something.
Well, no, it actually claims that you never can.
You can, after first step, you can't. Even when you come to 12th step and you want to help now, you're still not doing it from a space of, now I'm managing something.
No, A never equals B equals C.
Right.
It's always, we put in the effort, we put in the love, we put in the, and we leave the results up
and
to.
you surrender the results. Yeah.
Yes, and often though, because it's so deep, this getting that we cannot manage our lives, that people will get to the 12th step and say, well, I'm afraid to do any 12-step work because I don't think I can do it. And I was talking to somebody today, and when I said, we're not going to get a PhD in 12-step work. We just go and do it. We sit down and read the book. We share our experience, and we leave the results up to God or up to the moment.
Yeah, you do it in the way you can.
So when we say, gee, I don't know that I'm qualified to do this, we're actually disclosing that we haven't really we haven't really turned our will and our lives over to the care of this moment. We're still running the show, because of course we're not qualified. We just give it our best shot, and it's like be there, hopefully with some compassion and love and caring, and listening. One of the best skills we get is the listening skill, sharing our story with humility and honesty, and the other person sees our sincerity, sees our caringness, and that we're not holier than thou, or not, look, you're not preaching, and somehow it often works, and right, Preston?
Yeah, I guess like the thing that I'm kind of piecing together in my head is it's like, so it kind of sounds like what the two of you are saying, and correct me if I'm wrong, but if say in my situation, like I am in a place of like frustration because things aren't happening the way that I want them to, or the way that I think that maybe they should be happening. But it's like, it is okay to, like just kind of like let go of that and like ask for direction and say, like, I'm turning it over. If there's something that I should be doing about this, like show me like what it is. And if that path opens up, it's like too good to act from a place of love and a place of compassion and a place of wanting, and from wanting to help. And but in doing that, you also have to give up any attachment to what the outcome is.
Yeah.
It's like you can act, but you have to give up this that it has to be this way. You're just trusting that whatever the outcome is the outcome that's.
Yes. How amazing does that feel? Like, how does that feel?
Well, it takes a lot of the pressure off.
Yes, feels great, doesn't it?
Yeah.
Feels great because you no longer take this position that you cannot uphold anyways. That's only gonna make you suffer, because it'll not be good enough to your mind anyways. It'll not be good enough to someone else. You may get frustrated, maybe another virus comes or something, and then the whole product, like there's like an infinite thing that can frustrate you in the path. So, and you said, well, I want to help others to suffer less, and you're the one who suffers the most.
Okay. Yeah, that makes sense to me. But a lot of it just starts, with like giving up that, like the initial letting go of just like whatever it is that I want it to be. I just have to like let go of that and ask for whatever I'm supposed to be doing.
Phase, much more energy comes naturally, because not all your energy goes towards the frustration and the thinking, and you'll recognize more the flow, the natural flow.
Yeah. The natural
flow.
Yeah, it's beautiful, isn't it?
Yeah, like I said, it just takes a lot of the pressure off to not have to make sure everything happens the right way. It can just happen.
Yeah. Our conditioning, of course, is that, and that getting it right if we look around our life, it's in so many ways, I came in my room today and it looked like that tornado touched down in here last night. And part of what came up was, oh gosh, I wouldn't want anybody to see this. It was just an instant, but it's old, it's like, oh, wanting, to look good. And it was just, it went through very quickly. But I caught it, I saw it. I thought, oh, look at that, and because it's, we've been conditioned our whole, so as we watch those and we bring our presence to each one of those, we can surrender them, around everything, relationship, how we show up with our partners, we can just, watch where that need to be right or need to be perfect or need to be, comes up in many, many scenarios. We can just breathe into it and I think that's called self-realization. Is that what that's called, Adrian? And we see it, and not to beat ourselves up about it. We just like, oh, look at that. Oh, look at that. There I am. And then they lose their power. The old conditioning loses its power and it doesn't have us anymore,
And I want to say to you, Preston, because, a lot of these conversations we may have had more from a philosophy point of view. This, what you're saying back, oh, I see, this is what you're probably meaning. Like if you practice that, like in your life, in an active way, not just as a mental concept, and using it as another way to beat yourself up. If you didn't let go something or something like that, but if you're mindful of it and you try to bring it into your day more, you will actually, what it builds on itself, like you'll start to see that it's actually behaves that way. And so that's the nice thing about it. It's actually not, it's not just an idea that one holds for a little while. And that was a nice little idea, and then goes up, but it doesn't really, it's just what people say. No, it's and so when I say it, when I talk about it, I say it because it's my experience, if that makes sense.
Okay.
And
Yeah.
so it actually does work. And what for me, what my experience has been is that I've had to do it at higher and higher complexities, meaning like, it was easily done with things that was easy to do with, but then some really scary things would come, and I'd be like, here I think I need to control, here I think I need to know what to do or something like this, but then I would have my teachers who would keep assuring, like when I'd listen to it, say they didn't qualify to say, for the easy stuff you do this, and then for the hard stuff you do that, like that. But it's just, the mind tends to act more strongly when it says, yeah, but this is really serious, like this, you really got to take charge, or this, you got to really act now, even if it doesn't feel at all right. And you don't even have a clue what to do.
Okay.
So just wanted
That's
to add
helpful.
that little piece. Yeah.
On a simple level, like for me, I see all of this as a opportunity to bring us back to the moment. When I'm caught up in I shoulds, I should be, or I should do, or should, when I'm in my I shoulds, and I watch, and it's like a bell that brings me back to the moment.
I have a question for you, David, because I've also not asked you this. So some 10 years ago, I tried to read The Power of Now, and I couldn't read it. And then I read Tolley's second book, which was something like the new world, and I really, really like that, and I really got that one.
Yeah.
When you say to come back to the moment, like what does that look like for you? Like let's say when you are somewhere, like how do you do that, and what does that specifically mean for you, or what does that look like?
So my mind is full of story and judgment and on its own, you know, and so just in this example with I should, when my mind is, you know, I'm in the shower and my mind says, you should, you know, this is a good opportunity for you to be stretching. You should be. And as soon as I'm in a you should, it just is like a bell that brings me into now. I'm no longer in the thought. I'm like, oh, look at that. Oh,
Oh,
look at
now
that.
you're back in the shower.
Now I'm back in the shower. Yes.
Okay. Now I
Yeah.
understand.
And the same with fear, not always, but when fear comes up, it's like it is my just, you know, oh, okay, you know, because
So it maybe means, in other words, maybe become present to what is right now.
right now, yes,
Right,
yeah,
not something that's in your head about the future, about the past.
yeah, because fear is
Okay.
always about the future or the past, and well, it's
Right.
always really about the future, but it can
Right.
be bounced off the past, and at one level, I now know that fear is always an imposter, and so it's like, oh, okay, and but my mind feeds on it, so sometimes it will wrestle with me a bit. And wants to be there because it's like you know sucking on the tit of fear. And so yes, that's what I mean, that and when I'm here, then to me, that is, I'm in the presence of God. I'm in the presence of the moment. I'm in the presence of, it's not in the blissful way like we've seen, where somebody has a catharsis of laughter, and when they're when Muji is pointing them into uh, the the total emptiness, into the but it's like, oh, it's consciousness. Yeah. Yeah. The, the I'm going to say, I don't know if I should say that. Okay. I just had a wrestling match. The being more and more like that, if you will, experiencing that, being more present on more of the time, if you will. There's not much here. Everything is here, but there's less story with everything. There's less urgency. There's less. There's not. It feels, in a way, today, especially, like, oh, there's nothing to do. Do you know what I mean? It's like, okay, this is it, and yeah. So in a way, there's hardly anything to speak to anybody about. I was thinking today, my thought came, well, maybe I could just, change my context to become more aware that people are just interesting. That it doesn't have to mean anything. It doesn't have to they're just interesting. Or be, you know, because I found myself quite comfortable not being with anybody, and you know, I don't know if I'm explaining it right, but it's a I think my life has been so full of story for so long, and that in a way I'm
So the thought that you had today, is that another thought that was making up a story?
no, it's just that
I just don't understand your example. What did you use that example for?
I don't know what I was saying then, but
You said something about more interesting people, or you changing the context to, you said so. So I thought I'd change the context to maybe more interesting people.
well, in
Something
a
like
way,
that.
it's even more, it's bullshit, because I was in my head today thinking, you know, how can I actually spend time with people? Because
Yeah, but it sounds like a story,
yes, it was.
right?
Yes.
So it was an example of that,
Yeah. And
right?
it was a story, and yet it was a story until I just told it to you now. I bought into.
That's what I thought, maybe. Yeah, yeah. And then you
I
brought
had.
it out, and you're like, I just said I really enjoyed myself. Like, oh, I'm so good. I'm empty. And then the mind said, oh, I got to change my context. I'm more interested.
Yeah. Yeah. It's interesting, devious, or you know, has a
Well, it behaves like that.
yeah, it does. Hmm. Did that whole thing about being here now, did that help? Did you see that? Is that
Yes.
that's what you meant?
Yeah. So I wasn't sure how, and how, because you've said it a lot, and it's nice to hear. Um, the shower example is very, very good for understanding what you mean by that.
Hmm.
And I think it would help a lot. Uh, you know, if that's what Eckhart Tolle's book was about, then, or at least in some aspect, then I could see very well how that's a very powerful message.
And Hawkins too, in letting go.
Also, Hawkins, absolutely, yes. Or
In
Moody with the invitation,
yeah,
says leave the past, leave the future.
yeah.
Just come into the room of being right now.
And Hawkins was very practical with,
Yes,
you know, because he goes through everything from, you know, about the vibration of 30 up, you know, and gives us an example of how of letting go.
right.
And letting go really is about being present. You know, we bring in,
Present with what is.
yes,
Right. But in the case of letting go with Hawkins, it's also present to the feelings as they are. Not trying to change them or escape them.
no. As soon as we bring presence, they move on their own. You know, they just it shifts because
Eventually it will shift. Yeah. I think because I've done a lot of work with people in that, it's important to not have the expectation that they will move quickly. They will shift in time.
yes, yeah,
Otherwise it sets up an expectation, and it's like, well, no, it's not working. Yeah. There's like desire that not to have the feeling anymore.
yeah. I'm still
Yeah.
feeling grief.
What's up?
Yeah, there's still
Yeah.
whatever.
Well, grief being one that tends to, you know, take some time.
Yeah,
The fears too. I mean, all these darker feelings, they tend to be they're well in our system. Yeah.
Hmm.
Need some time and space. And
mhm.
Rupert Spira says, with fear, he says, um, you know, come to that fear and get familiar with it, and be open to having it, you know. Don't make it your enemy so much, you know, because you're always in conflict with your fear and in dislike of that fear and so on. And you know, when I first heard that some time ago, I was like, oh my goodness, I could never live with this fear, you know, like this first response. I can't stand this feeling, not like this, you know. And it's like, oh well, okay, I'll try to not mind it so much. Like that,
Mhm.
you know.
Mhm.
But in itself, you know, that's why we tend to run away from these feelings or suppress them or try
Drink,
to, in some cases, drown them out or something.
yeah, drink or use or
Yes, yes, yes.
yes, and so often with the newcomer in the recovery world, you know, we're even beginning with the language of emotions, you know.
Right,
So so we're starting way far back sometimes,
right.
and
Yeah.
because there's no language, there's no
Maybe the only feeling that's known as anger, maybe, or
yes, and you know, and all the things that the years that we had to go through really to see those things ourselves. I mean, that for me, I didn't have a language for feelings,
right,
you know, and most of it was anger, and you know, I didn't know how to discuss what was happening or even with myself, you know, and so most of my you know in the beginning was I would run away, you know, to work or the beauty of the 12-step program. Again, I keep coming back to it, is that in normal times we could go and sit in a meeting and Hawkins used to say that the meetings all vibrated at around 500 or 540. So if I walked into a meeting fucking angry, 15 minutes later, I'm like,
oh, so
and,
this is your experience.
oh yes. Yeah. 15
Wow.
minutes later, I don't even know what's happened, but I'm like, wow, you know, by the end of the meeting, I don't even remember what I was angry about. So, right, Preston?
Oh
And,
yeah,
and
I can testify.
yes,
Really? Hey, wow, that's really cool.
because, well, David, Dr. Hawkins, Dr. said, you know, that the whole thing vibrated around 540. And so, I mean, different meetings will be, but there rarely will be a meeting that would be under 300 or under 500, you know, or, you know, so you go there and we unconditionally love each other there. We
Right.
might not,
So, but you don't like you'll go in there angry
yeah,
and not open to love, let's say, and
not,
yet you kind of get melted out.
yeah,
Wow, that's very cool.
because the beautiful thing about it is we go there and maybe there's 30 people in a meeting and we're sitting in silence while others are speaking. And often what they're sharing is their experience, and it may be they're sharing their experience of anger, their experience of fear, their experience of, you know, disappointment, their, you know, and or they may be sharing their experience of awakening, you know, of the blessings of their new life. And but as that's happening, the honesty, the humility, you know, melts us.
Right, right,
And people will get up and say, I don't know what happened, but boy, I sure feel different.
right.
And it's all, you know, we call it the presence of God, you know.
Yeah,
And
I went. I had a friend, and she was visiting me, and she goes, "Oh, Adrian, I meant to go to a meeting at 7 o'clock," and I said, "Can I come with you?" So I went with her, and
nice.
it was really amazing. I really, really enjoyed it. It was like it felt like church to me, but you know, I'm not a big fan of church per se. Typically.
Usually it's in a church basement, by the way.
Right. In this case, it wasn't, but it was like it felt so. Yeah, it just really felt amazing, like the honesty and the openness and the vibe. Yeah, I really, really thought it was amazing.
Yeah. And so in my early days, when I first came in, I could hardly read. I mean, it wasn't that I couldn't read, but I was just a wreck, you know, and I would go to 2 or 3 meetings a day for months and months and months.
Because that would feel just, you couldn't handle it otherwise. You,
it would be
it's
like
like a reset, or
yeah,
like,
yeah, reset, let the pressure off, you know,
Uh-huh.
I could breathe, you know,
okay.
I didn't even do the steps in the beginning. You know, I didn't find somebody. It took me almost 2 years to find somebody that would take me through the steps. Not that they weren't there, but you know, I wasn't even, you know, available for that at the time. And I finally found some little hard-nosed Irish guy who buttonholed me, you know, and you know, who I respected and yeah, so who was able to speak my language and yeah, so that is what happens. And so when Hawkins talks about, and you've read his books, you know, he speaks of the 12 steps at 540 unconditional love, and to be in the presence of that all by itself is healing.
Right, absolutely.
And you know, and then, you know, we get gifted with the language, you know. I'm really enjoying listening just in the background often. Muji, months of it now. You know, since you went to Rishikesh, and it's yeah, it's nice to have him playing in the background, and I you know, I feel it.
Yes.
You know, because I would say that he vibrates in the, you know, in the maybe even in the 600s, you know, and so to be in the presence of that vibration for an hour or two every day, just itself shifts this, you know, and yeah,
Very nice.
isn't it? I was talking to a fellow today, and I said, you know, if this idea of consciousness or spiritual awakening was even in your top 3 of personal values, what would you do? How much time would you spend at it on a daily basis? You know, would you be reading books? Would you be in prayer? Would you be in meditation? You know, and I think, you know, well, for you, I think it's been and for me as well, in our at like our highest value for a long time, and you know, what a gift, you know, to have that as a high value, and yeah, and everything else falls in place, doesn't it, Adrian?
Yes.
Well, you guys, I don't have any idea what time of day it is. For an evening that I wasn't going to do, I said, no way, I'm done. I'm pretty, thank you. Thank you for showing up, Adrian.
Yeah, thank you for inviting me. Very
Yes.
nice.
And Preston, thank you for coming tonight.
I think it was just the thing that I needed. So thank you for deciding to sign on and give me the opportunity to participate and hear some different perspectives on some of the things that I'm been on my mind lately. So yeah, it's really good. Thank you.
You're welcome. Let's finish with a little quiet time, you know, to just sit. And one of the beautiful things about sitting is the possibility of dropping into more awareness, more consciousness, and with also is to I think to watch the mind, to be the observer, consciously observing what it does, and watching where we get attached and letting it go, just surrendering over and over again, and saying thank you. And in meditation, I recognize that yeah, it's a beautiful thing. So shall we do that for a little bit? And you guys, I don't know how long I'll sit for, but it may be 10 or 15 minutes, and stay if you can. And yeah, so about 9 o'clock maybe.
Okay. I'm going to turn my camera off, but I'll be on the line still.
All right. We want you to sit quietly.
I will be.
Okay. Awesome.
Good to meet you, Adrian.
Great meeting you, Preston. Nice to meet you.
Just 1 second. Yes. Still on camera. We're supposed to meditate. I have no idea in this second where the keys are. I'll be 10 minutes ish. All right. You could sit and meditate with us. Yeah. Okay. We have a guest who's going to sit.
Perfect.
Nathaniel's going to join us. Beautiful.
See you soon, David.
Okay, brother.
Awesome.
Thank you. So thank you all for joining us tonight. And just remember to use whatever's happening to bring us into the moment. When we come here with awareness, whatever is distressing us, whatever is upsetting us, begins to melt with presence. Be here now. And all of the shoulds, shouldn'ts, rights and wrongs are disappear in the perfection of the moment. Be here now. Like a friend of mine used to say, don't take anything too seriously. It's all passing. The only thing that's real is this moment. The rest is all passing. Thank you. Thanks, you guys. Love you. Talk soon.
Found Trevor in the bush down the road.
Have a good night, y'all.